Discover the incredible humanity revealed. What owners couldn't do to slaves in ancient Rome? Clara wiped the dust from an old box in her grandmother's attic. The musty air reminded her of home. Then, amid the cobwebs and forgotten trinkets, she uncovered a ledger bound in cracked leather, fragile yet demanding respect. Clara's heart raced. With trembling fingers, she opened the pages, revealing a world long buried. The words leaped off the pages, whispering stories of struggle, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of justice. It was as if she'd been transported to ancient Rome. Lives tangled in hardship yet steeped in dignity echoed through history. This is incredible, she whispered, all pouring over her like a warm summer's sun. How could a simple book hold so much humanity? She could feel her grandmother's spirit wrapped around her, urging her to dive deeper, to learn more. Clara's thoughts swirled with determination. In a small southern town where history ran deep and community bonds held strong, she knew this ledger could bridge her heritage with America's overlooked chapters. Those untold stories of humanity needed a voice, and she intended to be it. But Clara was aware of the resistance lurking nearby. Some townsfolk curled their lips at the thought of dredging up old wounds that painted their town in an unflattering light. Clinging to a curated history wasn't just convenient, it was comfortable. But Clara couldn't let that comfort deter her. The stories of her ancestors, her grandmother's bravery during civil rights marches, hung over her like a mantle of purpose. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that is happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. In the days leading up to the community forum Clara organized, whispers floated like shadows at the grocery store and the local diner. The elders, those who lived through the turning tides of history, nodded cautiously, while others merely dismissed her as a dreamer. Every skeptical remark fueled her fire. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice, "Keep going, Clara. Speak your truth." The atmosphere in the town hall buzzed that night, thick with apprehension and anticipation. Clara's voice quivered as she opened the floor. "Let us share our stories, our real stories," she urged, her heart a drumbeat echoing off the walls. An elder rose, his weathered face a tapestry of lifetimes lived. "For too long, we've kept quiet," he said, each word striking like lightning. "My family felt the grip of economic struggles. We fought day in and day out. A heavy silence fell, every eye glued to him. The reality of their shared history rippled through the crowd. As painful truths emerged, triumphs mingled with sorrows, creating a tapestry of human experience. Clara's heart swelled with hope and determination, but not everyone shared the vision of a brighter, united future. "Can we really heal?" someone muttered from the back. Clara's heart sank. Doubt filled the air, dark and thick as smoke. But she stood firm. The weight of knowledge pressed upon her. She had unearthed stories that could reshape their understanding of who they were, if only they were brave enough to listen. As the tension thickened, Clara looked around, eyes shining with fervor. She wanted to ask them all, can we face what lies beneath, no matter how uncomfortable? Are we ready to truly acknowledge our past? The air crackled, her question hanging rich with possibility. The night was far from over, and Clara's journey had just begun. Clara felt the weight of silence wrapping around the room, a thick blanket of hesitation. She scanned the faces in the crowd, some hopeful, others skeptical, but all were present, and that alone sparked a flicker of hope within her. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "What we uncover tonight is not just history, it's part of us," she said, her voice steadying with each word. "Our wounds can become our strength if we share and heal together." Another elder stood, a woman with hair like silver threads and eyes that seemed to hold countless stories. "My grandmother was a house servant," she began, her voice soft yet commanding. "She didn't have the luxury to shut her eyes to the world's pain. Every day, she lived with it, serving meals while dreaming of freedom. The room shifted, leaning in, eager to hear more. Clara could see understanding dawning in the eyes surrounding her. People who often looked away were now making eye contact, their expressions shifting from skepticism to vulnerability. She carried hope in her pocket, the elder continued, emotion wrapping her words. Hope for a day when things would be different. And she passed that hope to me. As the stories flowed, Clara felt a rush of energy. Each voice added to an intricate web of experience, pulling threads of history from the shadows and into the light. Laughter mingled with tears, and the room breathed a collective sigh of recognition. They were stitching together their pasts, reclaiming what had been denied or forgotten. Yet, just as the atmosphere began to transform, a voice pierced the moment. It was a younger man, his tone sharp. But what about the newer generations? Shouldn't we focus on the future instead of the past? The room froze, and Clara's heart sank. She had expected pushback, but this was direct and cutting. We honor the past, Clara argued, finding strength within. By acknowledging it, we create a future that's informed by our collective history. It's about understanding, about not repeating mistakes, and honoring the strength of those who paved the way for us. The man frowned, folding his arms. You think digging up old wounds will help? It'll only divide us more. Facing him, Clara felt a surge of urgency, as if their entire town's legacy hung in the balance. There's a difference between division and honesty. When we sweep the past under the rug, we allow the same mistakes to happen again. We have a chance to learn to grow. Some nodded, others remained unconvinced. Clara glanced around for support. The elder woman who spoke first stepped forward again. We can't heal what we want to acknowledge, she whispered as if sharing a secret that had been too long unspoken. A tingle of resolve coursed through Clara. We're all part of this story, she declared, her voice growing stronger. Together, we can incorporate all voices, the pain, the joy, the lessons learned. That's how we build a future worth living in. As the heat of conversation swelled around them, Clara noticed a flicker of light in the young man's eyes. Maybe there was hope yet. The evening wore on, stories overlapping, truths emerging, but shadows loomed still. Clara sensed a shift, a deepening bond among the townsfolk. Every story brought them closer, yet the challenge remained. She could feel it beneath the surface, an unwillingness to fully confront the darkness that lingered. Just when she thought they molded a collective identity, the townspeople began to turn their focus inward, asking if they could truly withstand the scrutiny of their history. As Clara stood bathed in the dim light of the hall, she realized this was just the beginning of their journey, her journey. Would they embrace the hard truths and forge a new path together, or retreat once more into silence? Clara's heart raced with hope and anxiety, knowing the stakes were high. Will we step into the light of our shared truth? She asked quietly, feeling the weight of every question hanging in the air. The answer lingered like a breath held too long, uncomfortable but necessary. Clara could only hope. What she didn't expect was how the echoes of their past might just demand more than they were ready to give. The hush deepened, a pregnant pause pregnant with the weight of what had been said. Clara's heart thumped steadily, almost loud enough to drown out the murmurings that rippled through the crowd. Some people exchanged glances, eyebrows furrowed in thought, expressions shifting like the leaves in an autumn breeze. Then, in the back, a voice broke through the quiet. What if we can't handle this? A man stood, broad-shouldered with a weathered face. His fingers trembled slightly as he spoke. What if the truth is too heavy, too painful? I know my father buried his past. He always said it was easier that way. Clara felt a chill creep up her spine. She understood his fear because she had fought against it herself. But isn't it more painful to let the past poison our present? She countered, wrapping her hands around the podium. We've been stifled by silence for too long. Healing requires truth, even if it hurts. What if the truth divides us? A woman chimed in, her voice quaking. What if my family is torn apart by what we learn? Clara took a deep breath, searching for the right words. Division comes from hiding, not confronting. She scanned the room, locking eyes with the younger man who had challenged her earlier. We have the chance to create something new together. We often fear the truth, but imagine how much more powerful we are when we face it united. The elder woman stepped forward again, her silver hair catching the light. I've spent my life carrying the weight of stories, gathered like stones in my heart. Some are precious, others cut deep. But every stone tells us something about who we are and how far we've come. We cannot deny their existence, or we risk losing ourselves. The crowd shifted, some nodding in agreement, while others remained tense, fists clenched. Clara felt the energy pulse around her, a mix of apprehension and hope woven together. Let us take turns, she proposed. Each of us can share one truth about our past. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real. Slowly a hand rose. It belonged to a woman Clara recognized as a school teacher. My mother faced discrimination every day, she began, her voice soft but fierce. But she taught me to stand tall, to be proud of my roots. I carry that forward into my classroom. One by one, they began taking turns, each story more vulnerable than the last. Clara felt tears prick her eyes as children spoke of fathers they admired and mothers who had to fight for their voices. Laughter punctuated the deep emotions, but every laugh was woven with the weight of their shared reality. She watched as barriers began to crumble. The younger man who had questioned their endeavor stood again, his expression softer now. I didn't know my family's South past lied so close to the surface. I guess I never wanted to know. But if we're to reclaim our story, I can see why it matters. With every revelation, Clara felt a sense of triumph. Each truth spoken not only connected them, it shed light on the hidden parts of their community. Her heart swelled with pride as she realized something incredible was happening. But as she absorbed their stories, the laughter, the anguish, the threads of resilience woven through the flicker of doubt struck deep within her. They were delving into dark waters, and Clara wondered if they were even ready for what lay beneath. A hush fell again when a young girl spoke, voice like a whisper. But what if the truth changes us, forever? At that moment, Clara felt the weight of her next words. What if that's exactly what we need? As her thoughts swirled, the fabric of their community hung in the balance. Would they embrace the truth they were seeking, or would fear loom larger than their hope? She could feel the answer waiting just out of reach, beating like a drum in her heart. The room seemed to hold its breath, caught in the tension of the girl's innocent question. Clara felt it, the pull of uncertainty wrapping around her like a thick fog. She knew this was a pivotal moment. The stakes felt incredibly high. Let us take a moment, Clara said, her voice steady but softer now. Let us just breathe and think about what it means for us to seek the truth. A truth that might shift the ground beneath our feet. The air was heavy, and Clara could see the faces around her tightening, processing. She glanced at the faces of the crowd, the stories lurking behind each set of eyes. Some glistened with unspilled tears, others burned with the vigor of unspoken truths. She needed them to understand this journey wasn't just about pain. It was about transformation. Every story we share is a step toward the light, Clara continued. When the shadows of our past are brought to the surface, they no longer hold the same power over us. A man with silver streaks in his hair, sitting in the corner, leaned in. Clara, is it really possible? Can we change by simply speaking our truths? Might it do more harm than good? Clara met his gaze, feeling the weight of his uncertainty. There is risk, yes. But isn't it more dangerous to live in fear? To let our parents' silence dictate our lives? Imagine breaking those chains. A murmur went through the crowd. The realization was slowly dawning on them. The freedom that could come from unearthing their shared history was tantalizing, something to be embraced rather than feared. Yet the air still buzzed with apprehension. I wouldn't be surprised if there are secrets out there that no one wants to touch, the school teacher, who had shared her story before, added. Things we wish didn't happen, things that might hurt us. Or things that remind us just how strong we are, a younger woman piped in, her voice trembling but resolved. I want to know what my grandmother went through. I want to carry her truth. Encouraged, Clara felt a spark ignite within her. This is how we gather strength. How we build a bridge over troubled waters. Each voice adds a new layer to our community, a richer, deeper experience. The energy in the room shifted. Clara could sense it, people inching closer to vulnerability. A power was rising, a collective willingness to lean in, to share and to listen. Then, a hand shot up at the back, an elderly man, his lined face both gentle and fierce. When I was a boy, my father hid part of our family history. I only learned the bitter truth after he was gone. It left a hole in my heart. He took a deep breath, and Clara held her breath too. I want to share that story now, to reclaim it before it slips away again. Then let us do it, Clara encouraged, her heart racing with hope. Let us reclaim every part of us together. One by one, they began to share a tapestry of struggles, triumphs, and untold dreams began to unfurl. Clara watched in awe. Some stories cracked like thunder, sharp with pain, others sang like a soft melody, filled with healing and joy. As the storytelling wove its rhythm, Clara felt a warmth flow through her. It became a safe space, a sanctuary of shared humanity where the past was respected, acknowledged, and ultimately woven into their identities. Yet as the tales unfolded, Clara couldn't shake the sense of urgency. What dangerous truths remained unspoken, lurking in the shadows? Then, just as they all seemed to hit their stride, the door swung open with a creak. A tall figure stepped in, the tension in the air intensifying like a storm brewing on the horizon. Clara's stomach lurched. What did he have to say? Would he stand for or against everything they were trying to unify? As his eyes scanned the room, Clara held her breath. What new truths, and perhaps challenges, awaited them now? Clara's heart raced as the figure in the doorway stepped further into the room. He was tall and imposing, a presence that shifted the energy, like dark clouds rolling in over a sunny sky. The murmurs in the crowd faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. She felt the weight of everyone's eyes shifting between the newcomer and her. "Who are you?" she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt inside. "Martin," he replied, his tone even. He glanced around, assessing the crowd. "I'm here to speak on behalf of some old truths you all may not be ready for." Clara felt a chill skitter down her spine. She was struck by the sharpness of his gaze. It felt as though he carried not just his own past, but a freight of hidden histories alongside him, histories that could either fracture or strengthen their brave gathering. Martin stepped forward, a bit more into the light. "I know what you're trying to do here," he said, gesturing at the group. "This sharing of stories, this reclamation of your legacies. But I wonder, are you prepared for the weight of what it means to face those truths? Not just the polished versions. The raw, unfiltered ones." A ripple of discomfort ran through the room. Clara's heart sank. Was he about to dismantle everything they'd built? "Don't you think we deserve to know?" the younger woman blurted out, her voice quaking. "Of course you do," Martin replied, a softness creeping into his voice. "But I've seen how truths can tear people apart. Not always the way you hope. Sometimes it leads to more questions, more pain." Clara shifted on her feet, wanting to defend the spirit of what they were doing. "We're not here to shy away, Martin. We're learning to confront our past, to embrace our whole selves. It's a journey." Martin's eyes softened, almost wistful. "A journey is often fraught with peril, Clara. Every step you take might unearth something that you wish had stayed buried." The room vibrated with anticipation. Clara exchanged sidelong glances with her community. She could sense their fear and curiosity intertwining. "What do you know?" the elderly man finally asked, his voice trembling but strong. "What could you possibly want to share that we haven't already experienced?" For a moment, silence enveloped them again, thick with possibility. Martin took a deep breath, reflecting as if over decades of preparation. "I witnessed a different kind of truth, a history woven through generations, names forgotten. A truth that lies in the unspoken pain, where silence has become a norm." Clara felt the air shift, tension winding tighter. She feared what could follow. "And?" she prodded. "I can tell you about loss, betrayal, and strength. But if I do," he paused, measuring each word. "Be ready, it may crack your foundations." Voices stirred in the crowd, mixed with murmurs of dissent and agreement. Clara looked at each face around her, young and old, hungry for knowledge yet terrified of the revelation. Was she ready for what intertwined truths might unveil? Then let us hear it, she declared, her voice ringing with determination. Let us face the storm. Together. Just as she finished her sentence, a terrified gasp broke through. A young girl clutched her grandmother's hand, her wide eyes glued to Martin, as if she already understood the impact of what was about to be unveiled. What storm was brewing, and would it sweep away the unity they had only begun to forge? Clara held her breath, readying herself for the tale that could change everything. Would they rise from the rubble, or would this truth become a point of contention, tearing them apart instead of binding them together? Martin took a moment, drawing in the collective anxiety surrounding him. His shoulders rose, then fell, a silent signal that he was about to plunge into the heavy waters they had stirred. Clara's heart beat loudly in her chest, a quickening rhythm that matched the energy crackling through the room. I grew up hearing stories, he began, his voice now a low rumble. Stories passed down like heirlooms, but they were often too painful to keep alive. My grandmother spoke of a family torn apart by a legacy of silence, a history choked on the very truths you seek. In her eyes, I saw the burden of unshared memories. The murmurs quieted as he continued, each word slicing through the air. This is not merely about the past. It has shaped who you are today in ways you cannot yet see. The way your ancestors were treated, the way society turned its back on their humanity, the marrow of their suffering has soaked into the bones of your current lives. Clara could feel the shifting emotions, her nerves raw as she glanced at the others. Eyes stared wide, some filled with dread, others with a flicker of understanding. What kind of legacy were they really carrying? And among those truths, Martin pressed on, lies the understanding that many of your families had to choose survival over dignity. Maybe they were forced to hide from who they really were to stay safe, to survive. This is the weight they bore. He took a stride toward the crowd, leaning into them. A weight you must now reckon with. The room felt heavy with Martin's words. Names danced on the tips of Clara's thoughts, ancestors long gone, battles fought in shadows, the muted cries of those who could not speak their anguish. Were all those stories buried beneath her family's smiling picture books? Who in your family was told to be quiet? Martin asked softly, almost a whisper but loaded with gravity. What secrets do you carry because of it? A wave of realization erupted quietly around the circle, faces paled by uncertainty. Clara's breath quickened. Could she even begin to grasp the depths of her own heritage? Understanding this isn't to inflict further pain, Martin added, his voice now tinged with urgency, but to lift the burden from your shoulders. To rewrite the narrative. Clara's throat felt tight. But how? She asked, the desperation hitting her hard. How do we rewrite something that feels so broken? For many, the truth becomes an opportunity, Martin replied, his eyes steadying on her. It's about strength, taking the fragments of those stories and stitching them together to create something new. In the uproar of murmurs, the room held its breath, aware that each person's pain combined could lead to collective healing. Eyes shifted to Clara again, hoping she would lead, uncertain of how to move forward through the wreckage of revelations. Clara squared her shoulders. We can talk about this. We must talk. If we expect to protect our future, we owe it to the past to stop the silence. As the group trifled with their fears, the young girl squeezed her grandmother's hand tighter. Will it hurt? She asked, her innocent voice slicing through the tension. Yes, Martin replied without hesitation. But it also has the potential to heal, to build bridges where there were only walls. Nothing worth having comes without cost. Clara swallowed, the weight of their shared history pressing on her chest. The enormity of it all settled in as she looked down at the girl, whose eyes reflected much more than curiosity, they mirrored the fear of generations. Let this be our journey, then, Clara murmured. Knowing it might hurt is just the beginning. As the room teetered on the edge of decision, one thought gripped Clara: could stepping into that shared pain actually show them a brighter path? Just as clarity began to sink in, the young girl spoke again, her voice startlingly clear. Will our stories be enough? An unfamiliar mix of hope and trepidation washed over Clara. Would their stories be enough to change their destinies, to stitch together the fabric of their community? The silence encased them once more, waiting for an answer that could either ignite courage or spiral into the unknown. Clara felt the weight of eyes upon her again, asking silently if she was ready to lead them into uncertainty, and she wondered were they truly prepared for what lay ahead. Clara took a deep breath, grounding herself as she sensed the collective gaze pressing down on her. The young girl's question hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Maybe, she started, her voice firmer now, our stories need to become a part of something bigger. The words felt like the first crack in glass, a mere tremor promising a shattering. If we share them, if we face them together, they become our shared truth. They can become a foundation to build on. Martin nodded, a flicker of approval in his eyes. That's it. Stories breathe life. They can revive forgotten connections, bridge the gaps between pain and understanding. Each of you has a story that forms a thread in the larger tapestry of your community. As Clara looked around the room, the faces began to shift from uncertain to resolute. She could see doubt lingering like a stubborn shadow, but in those moments, a flicker of resolve sparked in others' eyes. Think of your own stories, moments you've hidden away, or moments that made you question everything, Clara urged, feeling her courage swell. Let us share them. Let us open the discussion. The young girl continued to hold her grandmother's hand tightly, though Clara noticed her expression shift from worry to a spark of interest. It was as if she was deciding to let curiosity tiptoe ahead of fear. Clara's heart warmed at this small glimmer. I'll start, someone spoke up timidly from the back, a woman whose hands fidgeted in her lap. My mother always said we were proud of our heritage, but never shared what that meant. I grew up hearing about our tough ancestors but never knowing their full story. It made me feel like I had an incomplete puzzle of who I was. Encouraged, others began to share, their voices trembling yet filled with purpose. Each story was a small revelation, layered with both sorrow and strength. There was Marcus, who recalled his grandfather's quiet resistance against oppression and the impact it had on his own sense of identity. Abigail shared tales of her family's escape from a life of silence, her failures along the journey marking them as survivors. The narratives pooled in the space between them, messy and raw, yet undeniably powerful. Clara felt the warmth build inside her, a sense of community shaping up like a constellation against the dark. I never shared my grandfather's letters, Clara finally said, her voice shaky but determined. They went untouched, cloaked in shame. But I realized, rather than bowing to his pain, they should be honored. They tell a story of resilience, of refusing to let the trauma dominate the narrative. The room quieted, everyone reflectively absorbing her words. Clara's heart raced at the sincerity in the air. This was becoming something special, a sanctuary of shared narratives. What if we collected these stories? The young girl suggested, her eyes wide with hope. Maybe we could make a book. Something that opens hearts and minds. Yes, Martin exclaimed, his enthusiasm buzzing through the room. A living document of your history, your truth. Clara smiled, the idea gliding into place effortlessly. This was how they could honor the past while pushing toward the future. Yet a thought tugged at her heart, a fear lingering just beneath the excitement. Would they have the courage to confront their truths fully? As the group rallied around the notion of this shared compilation, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room, yanking Clara's attention. It was a stack of chairs tumbling down, scattering papers. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Had they stepped too far into their pasts? Old ghosts stirred as murmurs filled the space. Eyes darted around, uncertainty creeping back in. Clara felt her pulse quicken. The budding euphoria was at risk of being snuffed out. Would the struggles they'd barely begun to face pull them apart instead of bringing them together? Let us not shy away from this, she urged, her voice rising over the chaos. Every storm has its winds, but we want to sail through it back into silence. We're on the brink of something important together. The crowd hushed, tension vibrating through the group as they awaited the next wave of emotions. Clara's heart pounded in the silence, A fire ignited in her chest. Each person in the room now stood at a crossroads: would they confront their story or retreat? And with that, Clara knew they were beginning a journey that would test their resolve like never before. What would be the price of their honesty? The silence was thick, almost suffocating. Clara watched as the people around her pulled in their breath, waiting for something to break the spell of tension hanging in the air. She could see the young girl's eyes flicker, a mixture of concern and determination etched on her small face. It was the same look Clara had worn many years ago, when she first faced the ghosts of her own past. "Let us take a moment," Martin said softly, his voice steadying the room like a calm oasis. "What we are doing here, sharing our stories, isn't just about what happened to us. It's also about healing. About learning from each other." Clara felt a surge of gratitude toward Martin. His presence brought comfort, yet she knew that comfort wouldn't erase the fear. She stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. "Every voice matters. Yours matters. These stories can pave the way forward, can redefine who we are as a community." A man seated in the front raised his hand, his brows furrowed deeply. "But what if sharing our stories opens people up to judgment? What if they don't understand?" His voice quivered, revealing the deep-rooted apprehension felt by many in the room. Clara saw others nodding, their faces showing they too wondered about acceptance. "I get it," she replied, leaning in closer, "but consider this: what if, instead of judgment, we find acceptance? What if these stories spark empathy, ignite compassion, and light a path for a new beginning?" As she spoke, she sensed a collective intake of breath. The barriers began to chip away, and Clara felt the stirring of courage ripple across the room. The man shifted in his chair, and for a moment, a flicker of hope sparked in his eyes. Maybe he was considering it. "Think about it," she continued, her voice lifting. "We all face battles, whether big or small. By sharing our stories, we draw connections where there once were divides." Encouraged by Clara's energy, the young girl piped up again. "I want to share mine," she exclaimed. Clara's heart swelled. It was as if the girl had just grabbed a handhold in a world she was still learning to navigate. "Of course," Clara said, gesturing toward her. "Come on up. Your story is just as important." The young girl rose, taking a deep breath, her grandmother gently nudging her forward. As she stepped into the small spotlight, Clara's heart raced. In that moment, she could feel the power of vulnerability encapsulating them. "I always felt like I had to be perfect," the girl began, her voice shaking but rising with determination. "But I realized perfection isn't real. And that it's okay to be scared. Sometimes, I just want to be honest about who I am, what I feel." Clara felt tears prick at her eyes. There was an undeniable power in the child's honesty, something raw and pure that resonated with every adult in the room. As the girl shared her thoughts, others leaned in closer, rapt with attention. Clara watched emotions wash over various faces: astonishment, recognition, even longing. This was their moment of connection, a shared understanding pulsing through the nerves of the room. When the young girl finished, applause erupted, shouts of encouragement filling the space. "Beautiful! Brave! Thank you for sharing!" echoed around the room. Amidst the clapping, Clara felt a twinge of renewed hope. It was like the beginning of spring after a long winter. The coast seemed clearer, and possibilities emerged. Yet, just as Clara began to breathe a little easier, she noticed a figure lingering in the doorway. An older man stood there, his arms crossed, shadows deepening the lines on his face. His presence was a stark contrast to the warmth building within. The chatter in the room hushed as he stepped forward, the weight of history etched in his features. "What you're doing," he started, his voice low and gravelly, "it won't heal what's broken." The words landed like stones, and Clara's heart raced again. The moment felt poised on the cliff of confrontation. What secrets did he hold? What scars were still bleeding beneath the surface? Clara took a deep breath, steeling herself. Maybe it isn't about healing every wound. Maybe it's about allowing the scars to tell our stories, and with that, the air crackled with tension. What would the man reveal? Would the room hold its breath, Or would they come together to face the shadows that had lingered far too long? Clara knew they were standing on the edge of something monumental. The man stepped fully into the room, his presence casting a long shadow. Clara could feel the collective breath of the attendees hold tight in their throats. His voice cut through the lingering applause, heavy with years of unshared pain. "What you're doing isn't enough," he said, his words deliberate. "You speak of healing, of connecting through stories. But do you really think your words will change anything? The world outside these walls," he gestured broadly, "it's still cruel. It remembers everything we wish to forget." Clara's mind raced. She wanted to respond to reassure him, to ignite the spark of hope that had just begun to flicker in the room. But his gaze felt piercing, demanding honesty and engagement. There was a depth to his sorrow that she couldn't ignore. "One story can't change a lifetime of hurt," he continued, his intensity holding everyone's attention captive. "Trust me, I know. I fought my demons for years, and they never truly left." A woman in the back, her face lined with worry, whispered to the friend beside her, "How is he so sure it won't matter?" Clara swallowed hard, fighting back her own doubts. "But we can't let fear silence us. If we don't share, how can we ever begin to understand one another?" The man squared his shoulders. "Understanding?" he scoffed, his voice hardening. "Understanding doesn't feed your kids, give you a job, or mend the broken hearts left in the wake of this world's anger. It's easy to sit in here and talk while life keeps spinning us around outside." The room felt charged with emotion, anger, despair, even guilt. Clara sensed the rawness that lay deep in every heart present. She had felt that pull before, the urge to hide when darkness loomed too close. What he said was true, she realized. Life outside was relentless. Martin stepped forward, challenging the man with quiet courage. But what if one of these stories could reach someone out there? What if just one person begins to see through a shared narrative what they couldn't see before? Change takes time. It starts small. The man's expression softened, just slightly, as if a layer had peeled back. "Time doesn't mean much when you've lost so much already," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara was seized by a thought, a possibility. "Maybe it's not just about our stories changing the world," she offered gently. "Maybe it's also about changing ourselves, finding a little healing in sharing our burdens, even if we can't fix everything right away." There was a weight in her words, pulling at each person in the room. She saw the man's hard facade flicker a moment of uncertainty, of vulnerability. "What if for just one moment," Clara continued, "we pretended that our stories mattered? What if we realized that by not speaking, we allow fear to win? The world out there is wild, but we can create something safe in here." The lightest hint of a sigh escaped the man's lips, as if he was contemplating the impossible. "I'm not yet ready," he admitted begrudgingly. "Then just listen," Clara urged, her heart racing. "Let us speak for those who can't. Let our voices be the spark." There was a subtle change in the air, a shifting tide, the hint of something more than just distant hope. Clara felt it, and she sensed the others felt it too, the room united in something bigger than themselves. As they stood there, contemplating the struggle of vulnerability against the weight of fear, Clara felt a curiosity spark within her. What would it take to bridge their fears? How could each person in that room deal with their own shadows while supporting one another? The man's expression remained conflicted, caught somewhere between retreating and taking a leap. And in that fragile moment, Clara realized they were all just one story away from change, one story away from truth. What story would break through? Would anyone else step up, share their own struggles, and light a path forward? The room felt alive with possibility, yet it teetered on the brink of revelation. Clara knew they were just beginning to uncover the layers of pain and strength woven into their narratives. What way would they embrace next? The energy in the room was palpable, charged with something primal. Clara sensed the hope and hesitation coalescing into a moment that could define them. The air was thick with possibilities, so she took a step closer to the man who had voiced the skepticism, the one with the hardened heart. "Trust doesn't happen overnight," she said gently, carefully crafting her words like a fragile piece of art. But it begins with stories. We're not here to wave a magic wand and fix everything. We're here to understand, to create a foundation of trust. It's okay to be scared, we all are. We're forging a path we've never walked before. Slowly, the man looked around, his expression softening ever so slightly. Clara felt the shift. Maybe you don't want to, but what if you need to? She pressed. What if that fear is the very thing keeping you from healing? The room seemed to hold its breath again. Clara's heart raced, fueled by the importance of the moment. She noticed others shifting in their seats, leaning inward, curiosity flickering where skepticism had dominated. I can listen, the man finally said, his voice cracking, as though giving in to a long-buried truth. A small, tentative step forward, yet it felt monumental in the context of their gathering. Great! Let us share with you, Clara encouraged, motioning to the crowd. Who wants to go next? A middle-aged woman stood, her hands trembling but her chin lifted with resolve. I'll share, she said, glancing at the younger faces around her. My parents were refugees. My mother carried untold burdens, stories that couldn't leave her lips. She believed sharing would make her pain hurt more, but I now see that her silence echoed through generations. As she spoke, Clara could see such a weight lifting in the woman's posture. There was something deeply bonding about vulnerability. It was a reminder that no one was alone in their struggle. The room's atmosphere softened, allowing space for an acceptance of all emotions: fear, sadness, courage. I'd never told these stories, the woman continued, tears brimming. But holding them in felt like being trapped in chains. So here I am, finally unlocking the door. Applause erupted, the room swelling with encouragement. Clara felt the warmth envelop them, a genuine embrace that shattered the barriers, proving they could turn pain into power together. Yes! Clara exclaimed, this is it! Each voice matters, and by sharing together, we give each other strength. A young man raised his hand next, his face tight. I always felt torn between who I am and who my family expects me to be. This struggle is like a shadow, it follows me everywhere. Thank you for saying that, Clara replied, her heart swelling for his bravery. It's a universal struggle. We all wear masks we feel we have to put on. As the stories cascaded, the room began to pulse with energy. Each account mingled with laughter, and shouts of encouragement fluttered around like butterflies in spring. I thought I had to hide my roots to fit in, said an older man, his voice cracking slightly. But sharing this part of me feels liberating now. The laughter and tears intertwined, weaving a blanket of community over them. Clara felt joy break through every crack, melting away the lingering fears like snow under a bright sun. Martin chimed in, the more we talk, the more we realize our stories don't have to be perfect. They just need to be real. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted again. The man who had initially questioned their endeavor stood tall. His face reflected a storm of emotions, vulnerability emerging like new sprouts through hardened earth. Okay, he said, taking a deep breath. I see, maybe I've been afraid of how my truth would resonate with everyone else's. I wanted to control it so it wouldn't hurt. Silence fell over the group, eyes locked onto him. The tension melted away, crystallizing into support. My father didn't talk about his past, he continued, and that left me wondering. What ghosts haunted him? I've been too afraid to ask. You're not alone in that fear, Clara assured him, the words tumbling out before she fully registered. It's those unanswered questions and unshared stories that trail behind us like fading shadows. By saying them aloud, we bring them to light. He offered a small nod. This moment the realization that their stories could intertwine like vines seemed to ripple through the space. Then Clara knew, this transparent atmosphere was what they sought. Let us promise one another to carry this energy forward, to continue sharing even when it feels uncomfortable, Clara suggested, her voice steady and inviting. As they all nodded in agreement, Clara felt tears prick her eyes. It's like we've opened a door together, she whispered. A door that has been shut for far too long. With the room buzzing with hope, she closed her eyes for a moment, savoring the warmth pouring out of their shared truth. The softness mingling with urgency echoed. They were ready to embrace change together, rooted in understanding and honesty. Together, we can create a future shaped by our past. Let each of us be the light for one another, Clara declared, her voice rising, revealing the courage dwelling within them all. The crowd murmured, "We can do this." As Clara looked around, she saw faces transformed. Each person now carried a light within, fighting back against the shadows of their pasts. They had cracked open the lid of their history, and the stories poured forth, messy and powerful. "Let us make a pact," Clara urged, her heart pounding with purpose, "to share this evening as stories with others, our families, our friends, the world outside. Each one of us holds a piece that could pave the way to understanding." The echoes of agreement washed over her, filling every corner of the hall. The room vibrated with a newfound energy, a sacred promise to turn their painful pasts into a sturdy bridge toward understanding, resilience, and unity. "That's the spirit!" Martin cheered, the connection between them growing stronger with each word shared. "We can turn our pain into a road map, into something that can create change." Clara smiled, her heart beaming brighter than ever. In that moment, she realized, they were no longer just a collective of voices, but a tapestry of stories ready to shape a new tomorrow, their pasts embraced and honored, a source of strength lighting the way forward. As Clara gathered her breath, she whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. This was a monumental beginning, a continuation of all the stories that deserved honoring. With fierce determination, Clara knew they would strive on this journey together, their community renewed, forever changed. So, let them embrace this new dawn. Let this be the call to connect through every story, every truth revealed, and every heart that dared to open. Now was the time to act, to share, and to shine. And now for you, you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that uplift and inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so more stories can echo through the lives of others. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Every voice matters. Join us on this inspiring journey today.